November Ordinary Council meeting. This evening we will be dealing through business and processes as we go forward, and I'd invite people who wish to ask a question to come to the lectern and do accordingly. I'd also remind councillors that this meeting is being live streamed, and I'd encourage you to make sure you switch on your microphones before you endeavour to speak to a motion, so that people that are listening can at least hear what you are saying. Thank you very much. Got it there somewhere. Councillors, our normal process is to acknowledge country, and so I read the welcome to country. Shire of Esperance acknowledges the Noongar and the Ngadju people who are the traditional custodians of this land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians today. Councillors, we have all councillors present, I believe. Is that correct? In attendance? Thank you. Everyone's here. Do we have any other apologies? Any apologies, Mr. CEO? No apologies. Then we go on to item 3 on the agenda, is the notifications of granted leave of absence. Is any councillors wishing to seek a leave of absence? Councillor De Haas.
I wish to seek leave of absence between the 9th and the 13th of December, please.
Thank you. Is there any further councillors seeking leave of absence? All councillors, those in favour of granting leave of absence to Councillor De Haas? Thank you. That is carried 9 votes to 0. We go on then to announcements by person presiding without discussion. I have no items that I will make you aware of at the present time. So we go to item 6, which is the declaration of members' interests. Declarations of financial interests. Any declarations of financial interests? Councillor McMullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to declare a financial interest in item 12.1.4, new fees, PT Sessions Bay of Isles Leisure Centre, as I own a recreational gym in town. I'd also like to declare a financial interest in item 12.1.5, application for traders permit, as I own a coffee and food business in town. And I would also like to declare a financial interest in item 12.1.8, trial of trading hours permit, trial of trading permit, as I own a coffee and food business in town adjacent.
Thank you. Councillor De Haas, you have a declaration of financial interest?
I do. I'd like to declare a financial interest, 12.3.6, application for short-term adjustment to retail trading hours, as I own a small business in town.
Thank you. Any other declarations of financial? Councillor Chambers?
I'd like to declare a financial interest in item 12.3.6, as I own a supermarket in town.
Okay. Is there any further declarations of financial interests? If not, we move on then to declarations of proximity interests. Is there any councillor declaring proximity? Councillor McMullen.
Thank you. I'd like to declare proximity interest in item 12.3.6, application for short-term adjustment to trading hours, as I own a business adjacent to the applicant.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, I'd like to declare a proximity interest in item 12.2.5, as I own a paddock next door to the paddock that's being implicated by the Telegraph Road realignment.
Thank you. Any further proximity interests? Then we go to declarations of impartiality interests. Any declarations? Councillor McMullen again.
I'd like to declare an impartiality interest in item 12.1.2, development application, oversized building shed, as I am good friends with the applicants.
Thank you. Any further declarations of impartiality interest? Councillor O'Donnell?
I'd like to declare an impartiality interest in item 12.3.1, the Esperance Golf Club lease renewal request, because my husband is a member of the golf club and he also works with the golf club president. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Walker?
Thanks to the Chair. I'd like to declare an impartiality in item 12.3.4, self-supporting loan Esperance Bay Yacht Club, as I'm a member of the Esperance Bay Yacht Club.
Thank you. CEO?
I'd like to declare an interest in item 12.3.1 as I'm a member of the Esperance Golf Club.
Are there any further declarations of impartiality interests? If not, we move to public question time. So it's opportunity for members of the public to ask questions on any matter before council. Dr Newkirk, would you like to come forward and ask your questions that you've provided?
I'm happy for them to be on notice and the answers to
I was here and all very willing to answer your questions tonight. You're not going to ask me.
Well, if they get recorded, I'm happy to your questions. As long as they get recorded, because I'm not really ready to jot down all the answers. But the first question was to do with the strategic community plan. The community was recently invited to participate in workshops led by Catalyse. And can Council and Shire provide a summary of the findings of the workshop? I think that would be nice to know. A summary of the priority items that Council and Shire will now focus on. I believe that was the intent of the meeting for the next 12 to 24 months as a result of the consultations that took place. And thirdly, a revision of the strategic community plan. And when it is it anticipated that this will be tabled?
Okay. Thank you, Dr Newkirk. Could I say we did have some very successful sessions with members of the public, putting in their views into that plan, and it's all being collated in due course, but I don't believe that for all the information will be available, and the plan won't be available until approximately April of next year, and Council would be hopefully adopting it at that time.
Okay, thank you. The second one is related to the Streetscape Committee. I was at a workshop where I shared a table with quite a few members of that committee, and they voiced their concern with the effectiveness of that Streetscape Committee. It is noted that this committee has been inactive for quite some time. Is it still deemed to be of assistance to Council and Shire, seeing that it really hasn't come together? And it was mentioned that recommendations of this committee regarding landscaping at both the Dempster Street roundabout and at the headland of the new jetty are still waiting actioning. Why is that the case, and when does Shire expect to do these works?
Okay. Dr Newkirk, the committee, the Streetscape Committee, was part of a formal committee we had in place, and it came from an electors meeting 2 years ago. They've worked diligently along the way, but unfortunately we didn't have sufficient attendances in some of the meetings to be able to operate, because we didn't have a quorum, and so Council is looking at whether we make these a committee of Council or a working group. So we will come up with that sometime this month, hopefully, next month, my apologies, next month, and we can have an outcome from that, and hopefully we can make that committee much more workable, much easier for them to have significant input into activities in the community going forward.
Thank you. Well, but do we still expect actions of what they have recommended at the time about the Dempster Street roundabout?
Okay. Could I say that issue of the Dempsey Street roundabout, I can't give you any, I don't know what the specific questions are there that they might be concerned about, but certainly in regards to the jetty headland, once again there, I'm not sure what is being referred to. You are indicating that there was work to be done at the jetty headland and the car parking area. I presume you're referring to the area where the laydown was for the company building the jetty. But if it's not that, if it's in the jetty headland itself, well, that's work still to be done, and it probably would be done in a future budget.
Okay, yeah, no, it was mentioned that they had recommended certain gum trees that would help for shade in that area where the jetty hits the headland, and they were disappointed that nothing had happened there. Similarly, around the roundabout, we still look at a concrete wasteland, and we've seen landscaping in the middle of the roundabout and along Dempsey Street and Andrew Street, but nothing, say, where there used to be the brick walls. And again, there were apparently recommendations from them, but they haven't been actioned. So the question is, why, if we had a committee that specifically had people that were interested in those kind of activities and knowledge about those, what happened to their recommendations, and why can't we do those kind of things?
Well, thank you. I'm not exactly sure what's happened with those recommendations, or whether they've been unable to be activated because they might have had a discussion session together, but the formalities of the committee, as I've just explained, didn't allow that decision to be carried forward. They would have had to have a quorum regardless of what they might have thought about and said in that committee. I'm not sure, Mr. Walker, would you wish to comment in regards to that matter?
Yeah, sure. We've had preliminary discussions with the committee regarding Dempsey Street roundabout. We've never come to kind of the finalisation of what we want to do around the roundabout, but they were looking at some serious dollars which would have to go back to council and budget, which we don't have. So nothing formally will happen until next financial year with that, but we just need to work through the committee. And as the Shire President said, we've been struggling to get committee meetings together and the like to get that progressed. As for the headland, I've never heard of those recommendations about blue gums, and it was never brought up with the committee, so I'm unaware of where they have come from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that's good clarification. The third item that I raised in my questions has to do with Castletown beach replenishment. I know that that project got delayed because the department that was going to do the extraction of the sand was delayed, and I think COVID got in. But can Shire now provide the actual cost for this project? Because I believe that the cost that the department was carrying went up. How does this compare to the original estimates, and how much of the discrepancy was caused by the delays and the cost increase by the department? Very important, what is now the estimated annual cost savings, because we looked at saving money and not having to use sand from elsewhere. And will there be a review of the process that was used of the pumping of the sand, and does Shire anticipate using this approach for replenishment in the future?
Dr. Newkirk, the project is finished at this time. And they've pulled up all the pipes and they've moved on. The project was administered by the Department of Transport. We had made initial contributions to this. Any overruns of those dollars that were allowed for originally would be the responsibility of the department, and we are unsure of what that might have been. Backpassing project is a 2-year project. We can't make any assessments of it. It's a trial, and we can't make any assessments on it until that trial is finished. And we'll only know that after 2 years of normal seasons, we might show it, or whatever the seasons bring us over the 2 years, how much sand gets washed away, to make any assessment at all of how successful it's been. So it is a trial. We'll analyse it at the end of 2 years, the value of that trial, and we should be able to give some indication of whether we'll continue on and put in permanent infrastructure to do it, or we'll look at other ways to deal with coastal erosion.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions that you would like to ask of council, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, no other questions? Thank you. Then we move on, councillors. We go to public addresses and deputations. Is there any public addresses, Mr. CEO? We go to petitions. Do we have any petitions? No. Thank you. So we go to confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 26th of October. Is someone prepared to move the confirmation of those minutes? Moved by Councillor Oborne, seconded by Councillor De Haas. I take it you're ready to vote, councillors. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9 votes to nil. We then go to delegates' reports without discussion. Delegates, you've listed it. Thank you for putting in your reports. And first one, Councillor Oborne, do you have anything you'd like to add to your? Okay, we go then to Councillor Flanagan.
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So we go to Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I would like to comment on Councillor De Haas and I attended the WA Tourism Awards in Perth recently, and my takeaway from that was that tourist attractions have to have a point of difference and a wow factor to have any chance of winning gold, silver and bronze in these awards. We have to be brave, we have to take risks and to build on our tourism services. That's my takeaway from the awards. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor O'Donnell. We then go to Councillor Graham.
Nothing there, thank you,
We go to Councillor De Haas.
I would just like to reiterate what Councillor O'Donnell said, please.
Thank you. Councillor Horan.
No, nothing to add.
Thank you. And we go to Councillor McMullen.
That's tabled, thank you.
Go to Deputy President, Councillor Chambers.
It's tabled, thank you, Chair.
Okay, councillors, I've listed my activities there for the month, but I'd also like to make special highlight of something I haven't listed to that, and that was the visit to the new Esperance TAFE at their open day. I was extremely pleased and excited, I think I could say, of the amount of equipment that are in the new building, high class equipment to teach trades, to teach a whole range of subjects, right through from home and beauty, nursing, through the mechanical trades, through the building trades, and many of those things. And I think if you haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to go there and have a look at what they're doing. It was just great to walk through the building and have it all explained to us, the various new, the various parts and the new equipment, modern day equipment to teach all of those trade areas. So great credit to TAFE at this stage. The next thing we need is people to fill that building and do those courses going forward. I think that'll be the great time we'll see when we get many tradespeople, or many people coming out of there with good skills. Okay, that's our delegates' reports. Thank you. So now we move into matters requiring a determination of council. For people in the gallery, I'll refer to page numbers where these items are, and you should be able to follow through on those agendas that are on the seats in and around you in the gallery. So the first item is item 12.1.1, the proposed renaming of Reserve 41097 Duke of Orleans Bay Regional Park. Are there any questions that we might have to Mr. Henley on this item, or Ms. Phillips? No questions? Is someone prepared to move a motion in regards to this item? Yep, no, Sorry, Councillor
Sorry, yeah,
McMullen?
my apologies, I wasn't here at the briefing session last week, but I'm just curious as to what level of consultation has been done, particularly with the businesses in that area that affected that, you know, say for example, the Duke of Orleans Bay Caravan Park. I'm just curious what the consultation process was with this. It's got listed in the paper that, you know, obviously Dallarack, Parks and Environment and the executive management team, but was there any consultation with the community in that particular area or businesses surrounding this?
Through the chair, I can advise that there was no external consultation done in this particular proposal. Although I will identify that Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage guidelines is that where an Indigenous name is involved, the only body that needs to be consulted is the Aboriginal body.
And one further quick question. I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration given to dual naming rights as well. I know when you look at the Landgate website, Aboriginal and dual naming guidelines, they have set guidelines and policy on place. I'll just read an excerpt. You know, geographical features and places in Western Australia were named by Aboriginal peoples long before the arrival of non-Aboriginal people. The names are not arbitrary, they're intrinsically attached to an Aboriginal group's understanding of its history, culture, rights and responsibilities to the land, and Landgate is committed to the continued recognition of Aboriginal cultural heritage by capturing and recording the original place names and connection to the geographical features. To do this, Landgate has created the Aboriginal and dual naming guidelines to provide a framework for the naming of Western Australian geographical features and places within with Aboriginal names. So I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration, and my apologies if this question was answered last week at the agenda briefing.
Mrs. Phillips, you indicated you had some answers here.
Yeah, sure. Just to clarify a couple of points, I guess. This is not a dual naming exercise. It's simply assigning a name to a reserve which has previously had a number as such. So the requirements are somewhat different. Just to touch on, I suppose, the question around the businesses affected by the area. I guess the question really here that we're talking about is what the effect is. This is largely an administrative exercise which is, I suppose, assigning a number to a reserve. It is, I suppose, a process that gives no rights of access to the land whatsoever, other than that provided for already for the reserve, which is general public access. It does not intend to rename any features across the area in any way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the process is largely administrative in function, but very symbolic in gesture.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions you might want to ask the councillors to the staff? Thank you, Mr. Henley and Mrs. Phillips, for your answers. Okay, so there's a resolution here in regards to this one, councillors. Is someone looking to put forward that resolution or an alternate resolution?
I'd like to put forward an alternate resolution, Mr.
Okay,
President.
thank you. Councillor Flanagan.
I would submit that the resolution should be that this item be laid on the table until the March 2022 Ordinary Council meeting to enable the community consultation on the proposed naming of Reserve 41097.
Okay, is that in written format?
Yes.
Would you provide that to the our minute secretary so that she can write it up?
If she can read it.
Okay. Councillor Flanagan, is that close to what you're saying? I don't think it's a property. I think it should be a reserve. Consultation on the name, property naming. It doesn't seem to be the correct way to
No,
put
it's
it.
not. It's proposed naming of the reserve 41097 to be undertaken.
To be undertaken. Okay. All right. Now, you happy with that motion as it is now?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion? It's seconded by Councillor Graham. Councillor Flanagan, you can speak to your motion.
Just basically in the context of what the question raised by Councillor McMullen in relation to consultation. I've been contacted by a number of community members. Just the fact that they didn't believe they had been consulted. I understand the response from the officer in relation to the process. I just believe that a greater degree of insight from the community in relation to what the actual process is, what it entails, and what it will result in would be beneficial if we actually consulted with the community about that.
Thank you. I think I've got to use a new process now, so I'll call for is there a speaker against? No speaker against? Councillor Graham is the seconder. Do you wish to speak in favour?
Yes, just like to support the motion by Councillor Flanagan. The Duke has a long history, and I think we need to have careful, well, the process needs to be carefully done. Yeah, I too have had a number of calls querying this. It's the first time, perhaps in a long time, that a naming situation's been asked for. So I think the community should have a good consultation on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against this motion or an amendment? Is there a speaker against or an amendment? There's no speakers against, there's no amendment, there hasn't been a speaker against, so I believe you're ready to vote on it, councillors. So those in favour, please, those in favour of the motion, please show. Nine votes to nil. Thank you, that's carried. Okay, councillors, we move on to, get my papers in the right order. We move on now to item 12.1.2, oversized outbuilding shed, retaining walls and associated works. The item's on page 21 and the recommendation is on page 25. Are there any questions you might have on this item to Mr. Henley or Mrs. Phillips? And if there are no questions, is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor McMullen.
Yep, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation that council approve development application 1020204402.2 for an oversized outbuilding shed, retaining walls and associated works at lot 18, 120 Pink Lake Road, Sinclair, subject to the following conditions 1 through 9 and advice notes 1 through 5.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor McMullen. Seconded by Councillor Oborne. Councillor McMullen, you wish to speak to the motion?
This is a pretty straightforward application. We've seen many oversized sheds and outbuildings come across our tables. I'd like to note that there were no objections from adjoining landowners, and I urge council to consider and vote for this motion.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Oborne.
Very quickly, just to say there are no objections. It's a legitimate use and it's consistent with all previous decisions we've made in this regard.
Is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? No speakers against, no amendment. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9-0. Thank you. We now move on to 12.1.3, a development application, alterations to existing dwelling and oversized outbuildings. That item is on page 30 of your agenda with the recommendation on page 36. Are there any questions on this item to Mr. Hinley or Mrs. Phillips? No questions? Someone prepared to put a motion in regards to this item, then?
I'd like to
Councillor
move-
Horan?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion that we accept this 12.1.3.
Okay, so we're talking about the recommendation on page 36, councillors. Councillor Horan has moved the officer's recommendation. Correct? Correct. Thank you. It's a seconder to the motion. Seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Horan, you can speak to the motion if you so wish.
Yes, thank you. I went up and paid a visit at the place and had a look and got a fair feel for it. There's no objection from any neighbours, particularly one in the front because the people that actually own that block. And behind there's nothing on the other side anyway. And I look at it and the shed is oversized for sure, but when you look at what's got to go in it, it had a boat that I've seen parked there for a number of years, a big boat, a ship just about, I think I'd call it, and it needs that height in the shed, and it's not going to affect anybody at all. So I'd like to move that we accept this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Horan. The second is Councillor O'Donnell. Do you wish to speak as the seconder?
No, just that it's an approval for a development application, no objection, so I can't see any problem with it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so is there a speaker against the motion? No speakers against. Is there an amendment? No amendment, so take it then you're ready to vote. Those in favour of the motion, please show. That is carried 9-0 again. Thank you. I think I didn't see which way you did. Under control. Good. Okay, so there, now we go for a 12.1.4 on page 43 of your agenda. This item relates to fees for training sessions at the Bay of Isles Leisure Centre, and we had Councillor McMullen declared a financial interest in this item, and he's leaving the chamber. Councillors, do we have any questions to Mrs. Phillips in regards to this item? No? Okay. No questions. Is someone prepared to move the motion then? Motion as it is written on page 44 of the agenda. Somebody prepared. Councillor Flanagan, would you like to read that motion?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd propose that council adopts 2 new fees, being personal training session half hour dry, full members $40, and personal training session 1 hour dry, full members $60, and give public notice to the imposition of the new fee, identifying that it will commence from the 6th of December 2021.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the motion? Seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor Flanagan, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's pretty straightforward. There is merit in the proposal in that it has potential for increasing the activity in relation to the personal training, and also would potentially increase membership at the Bay of Isles Leisure Centre.
Okay. Is there a speaker against? Councillor De Haas, do you wish to, as a seconder, do you wish to speak in favour?
I would just like to add that I totally agree with what Councillor Flanagan said. Was exactly what I was going to say, so don't need to.
Okay, so is there any speakers against or an amendment? Take it you're ready to vote, councillors. This requires an absolute majority. Those in favour, please show. That is carried 8 votes to nil, an absolute majority. Thank you. Call Councillor McMullen back into the chamber, please. Councillors, we now go to item 12.1.5, an application for trader's permit for food van. Oh, sorry. The item's on page 45, the recommendations on point 48. Councillor McMullen has declared a financial interest on this one and left the chamber. So, are there any questions we might have to Mrs. Phillips on this item? No questions? Someone prepared to move the motion then? Stalemate? Councillor Flanagan.
Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, or that council refuse the application for trader's permit for Westies food van for the following safety reasons. That traffic and pedestrian safety will be further compromised in the vicinity of West Beach and Twilight Beach Road, and the car park by the introduction of the proposed trader's permit, increasing the patronage of the car park, and the potential for the attraction of additional patrons to West Beach, including tourists who are not familiar with many hazards of West Beach, poses additional safety risks for those patrons as identified by the Coastal Risk Assessment.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Flanagan. Is there seconded to the motion? Seconded by Councillor Horan. Councillor Flanagan, you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I've carefully considered that motion and the officer's recommendation, especially in the context of the SAT determination that was made in relation to the original application by this applicant for the same location, and it goes to the materiality of the basically what's been proposed against the applicant's case, the respondent's case in the SAT determination, and whether or not there has been anything significantly different proposed by the applicant, and I can't see that in the report. That being the case, I don't consider that would be appropriate for council to approve the application.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? Councillor O'Donnell?
Firstly, before I start again, I'd like to sincerely thank the staff in providing more information at my request. I am speaking against the officer's recommendation today, however, because in my opinion, the applicants are only requesting a 6-week trial. I'd like to talk about safety, because previously in November 2020, Council approved a permit outside the TPP for a temporary trading area in a road reserve adjacent to Lot 299 Goldfields Road to operate a food van for a period of 6 months. This area is located across a busy road from the beach with no curb division whatsoever and with limited car park bays. With the West Beach car park, in my opinion, traffic and pedestrians would not be further compromised in the vicinity of West Beach and Twilight Beach Road by an introduction of a food van. There are approximately 40 car parks and one acrid bay in the well-maintained West Beach car park, which also provides toilets, brick paved pathway, timber decking and popular newly constructed timber seating. West Beach car park has ample capacity to cater for one food van, when compared to the 56 car park bays at the Jetty Headland, which caters for 4 permanent food vans, which equates to only 14 car parks per van. The West Beach car park itself is not identified as a hazard in the Coastal Risk Assessment, and in my opinion, the majority of users of the car park enter the car park only for purpose of sightseeing from the timber boardwalk. As far as a distraction goes, a food van at West Beach would not be any more of a distraction from passing traffic than the following examples. The Heli Spirit van, which is located on the Esplanade, and a helicopter flying and landing from the James Street groin, or surfers changing out of wetsuits in the West Beach car park. And as my husband says, 3 girls with bikinis is much more of a distraction in the car park. This is only a temporary permit. Applicant is only requesting a 6-week trial over the summer months to give our community and the Shire an opportunity to see if a food van located at West Beach car park can be successful and provide a much needed service in our busy season. Councillors, please consider this application carefully. Our decisions are important for the growth of our town moving into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the speaker against. The seconder is, you can speak in favour now. You've seconded the motion. Councillor Foran.
Yes, I really concerned about from the traffic point of view, because I live out past there. I go past that place probably 5 times, 10 times I go past it a day, and in the space of a week I reckon I have a close shave nearly every week with people just coming straight down John Street, not looking where they're going, looking out at the ocean, and I had to slam the brakes on so hard the other week that the old ABS kicked in on my brakes, and that happens quite regularly. So putting a coffee van there I don't see improving the situation at all. And as far as no changes that happened since the last SAP report, there is certainly a lot of changes, a lot more traffic there, a lot more people since they put those seats in, a lot more people are using it. And I just find I've got to, if people don't do the 50 kilometres an hour, I guarantee that, you know, the cops sit there quite often, but I drive like an old pensioner, I come down, I think that saved me a number of times. But yeah, I'm firmly against it just from the traffic point of view alone. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the speaker. That's a speaker in favour of the motion. A speaker against the motion. Councillor Oborne.
Councillor O'Donnell's actually changed my mind. If you could see my notes, you'd see I was going to vote not to allow the trial to go ahead, but 2 compelling arguments you made, because personally I'd like to see it go ahead. There isn't anything on that side of town, so for people like me that live that side of town, you've got to go into town, get your coffee, then come back to go to the beach that side of town. But for all the reasons, I was going to vote no, but you brought 2 things which have changed my mind. One of which was the fact it is only a 6-week trial, so if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But if it does work, we've just added some tourism offerings to the other side of town. And the second thing was comparing apples for apples. We did let Bean Break do it from that car park. So 6 weeks to trial West is apples for apples, and we do let 4 food vans with 52 car parks, so 1 food van with 40 car parks. It's only 6 weeks.
Okay, that's the speaker against the motion. A speaker in favour of the motion. Councillor Chambers.
I'd like to speak in favour of the motion. Whilst I agree in principle to having a food van out at Westies, I can understand why there's a reason for a food van there. I personally went out there and had a look in that car park the other day. I don't think that all of the traffic and all of the risk is about the road on the outside. When I went up there last night, there was a camper van parked where they wanted to put the caravan. If anyone was to park directly adjacent to that, there's not even enough room to reverse back out and avoid people that would be standing alongside that food van if it was in that location where it is. Someone will get reversed into. And I know it's only for 6 weeks, but it takes less than 2 seconds to hit someone in a car and change their life forever. With the van park, as far as where the other caravan or the other vans have been parked in other car parks, they've been well off the road. This is about 1.5 metres maximum off the road, with the back to the road, and that creates a blind spot for people stepping out from the van onto the road. Certainly in the most western spot, it's even closer than 1.5 metres to the road.
there is a large amount of vegetation just to the west of where the van is, and it would create a complete blind spot for anyone coming down the hill or going up that hill for someone to step out from that van onto the road. So I just, and when I stood there I had a look, and I just can't see practically how a van would work in there without creating a huge amount of risk for people that are, one, using the van, or for other people that are driving in and out of that car park. It's not a through car park. You drive into it, you park up that other end, you reverse out and reverse back and drive back down that car park. And I think there's way too many risks in that car park.
That's a speaker in favour of the motion. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is there an amendment? There's no speakers, further speakers, and no amendment. I'll give the right of reply. There's been 2 speakers against, so I'll give the right of reply to Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I reiterate the finding of the SAT report and the merits that were considered in that report and the basis for its finding. Putting forward a proposition or comparing that what's actually occurred in other areas with different locations and different circumstances does not actually compromise the actual basis for the SAT finding. And from that point of view, I don't think that the case has been demonstrated on its merits that this application should be approved.
Councillors, that closes the debate. So I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against. So the motion is carried 5 votes to 3. No, well, okay, let's go again. If you question those in favour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 against. Correct? 1, 2, 3. Okay, call Councillor McMullen back into the chamber, please. Councillor McMullen, firstly my apologies for not advising you that that previous motion was carried, and this one, this current one, the last one we spoke about on the trading permit for Westies Food Van, was carried as well. Councillors, could I just compliment you on the quality of that debate? It's the best debate since I've been back in this council. It was very structured and extremely well done, so thank you for your commitment to making good decisions. Let's move on from there then. We go to 12.1.6, museum opening hours. This item's on page 68, recommendation on page 69. Are there any questions that you might have on this one to Mrs. Phillips? Have I got it right? I haven't got to the page yet. So, any questions? No questions? If there's no questions, is someone prepared to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Oborne. Would you like to read the motion?
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council approve the Esperance Museum opening 7 days a week from 20th of December 2021 until 30th of January 2022.
Moved by Councillor Oborne. Is it seconded? Seconded by Councillor Chambers. So it's moved and seconded. Councillor Oborne, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as a tourist town, we need to be open. I think this is a great outcome that we can be open 7 days a week, and an even better outcome that it's our valued volunteers putting their hand up to do it. It's great that they've got the capacity to do that and the willingness to do that, and I think this is an important tourism offering for our town over the summer period.
Is there a speaker against the motion? No speakers against. The seconder wish to speak to the motion?
Only to reiterate what Councillor Oborne said, I believe it'll be a good asset, and yes, thanks very much to the volunteers for putting their hand up and making it possible.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Is there an amendment? Being no speakers against and no amendment, I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried, 9 votes to nil. We move on then to item 12.1.7, removal of basic daily fees for home care package clients. That's on page 70 of your agendas, and the recommendation is on page 71. Are there any questions you might have to Mrs. Phillips on this item? Yeah, did you have a? No, I'll take the mover, and Councillor O'Donnell, would you like to read the motion, please? Well, no, I'll ask if you.
This is recommendation that Council 1 remove the basic daily fee for clients' services provided under the home care package program at Estimates Home Care from the schedule of fees and charges. 2, publicly advertise the removal of the fee from the schedule of fees and charges in accordance with the statutory requirements. And 3, notify Estimates Home Care clients that the fee will be discontinued from the 1st of December 2021.
Is there a seconder to the motion? Secondly, thank you, Councillor De Haas is seconded. Councillor O'Donnell, you can speak to your motion.
I think this is a very good thing to offer the clients. Removing the basic daily fee will help them immensely, and I congratulate the staff for coming up with this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? The seconder, Councillor De Haas, did you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I don't really have anything more than Councillor O'Donnell has already said.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? I put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried, 9 votes to nil. We move on to 12.1.8, and the item is on page 80, and the recommendations on page 83. Is there any questions to Mrs. Phillips on this item? Yes, Councillor O'Donnell. Thank you. Councillor McMullen has left the chamber.
Sorry, new to town. The Jetty Shack, can you point me geographically to its location?
On that here, there's a permanent land there, and its name is the Jetty Shack.
Look, in all honesty, I'm not familiar with the premises and the opening hours. I'm happy to refer that to my other colleagues if it's known.
Someone else wants to advise? The Jetty Shack has not operated yet, to my knowledge. That's the 4th site. You've got you've got the Coffee Cat and the Seduce, and you've got Spudlicious working periodically, and the 4th site, there is we've agreed to a transfer to another operator, but I don't believe he's operated. Is that right, Mr. CEO?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. And the other thing important to note on these ones is that no commercial leases, so we don't have any say on their trading hours anyhow. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just through the chair, I think I walk in every day, someone there parked up with a fish and chip van there a while back. I don't know who that was, Sainty or someone there was. Jetty Shack. Well, that was just recently, so.
Okay, what's that?
Oh, no, since then.
Councillor Chambers, did you wish to make comment on this, because I think you're familiar?
Yeah, the Jetty Shack is owned by Mr. Sainty. They're still looking to try and acquire staff to operate within that area. Both the people that are operating with the Jetty Shack actually own other businesses, so they're in the process of trying to get staff. I've spoken with him the other day. He actually attended the agenda briefing here the other day, and as per the report, then they'll be taken into account should there be another operator that wishes to operate within this area. But currently, they're not looking at starting up anytime soon.
Okay, so that answers your question, Councillor O'Donnell?
Thank
Okay, any other questions you might have, Councillor
Yeah,
Graham?
just a question to Mrs Phillips. Has there, since this has been public, has there been any feedback from the lessees? Thank you.
Not to my knowledge, not directly through the external services portfolio specifically, but that may be different within the other directorates or in fact the CEO's office. But to my knowledge, no feedback to date.
CEO says no?
Not from my office unless it's through.
Okay. Right, it appears there's no other. All questions answered? Well, we have a recommendation here, councillors, on page 83. Is someone prepared to move that? Mr Chambers has moved. Would you wish to read it, councillor?
The officer's recommendation that council approve a trial of trading for a mobile food van to sell coffee, tea, biscuits and cakes from within Reserve 27318 on weekends between the 1st of December 2021 and the 28th of February 2022. Change the mobile food business fee on a pro rata basis to suit the proposed time frame and report back to council on any outcomes of the trial as part of the review process of extension EXT 030 trading in public places policy.
Thank you. That's moved. Is there a second? Second by councillor O'Born. Councillor Chambers, you'll speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This area has had a considerable amount of money spent on it to try and activate it and to make it a wonderful place for the public. We have had discussions, or the Shire has had discussions with the existing lessees that are there, and I understand that there are certain reasons why they're not open, but we still get, and I certainly still get, a lot of feedback from community about being down there on the weekend and not being able to get a coffee. I think there's a fantastic opportunity for someone else to get in there and have a go, and certainly over the busy summer period, I'm sure there's a van somewhere that someone would like to have a go at and see whether we can activate this area and make use of what is a sensational area.
Thank you. Is the Speaker against the motion? Second, I'd like to speak to the motion.
Yes, please. I'd like to reiterate my comment about being open over summer and providing things for locals and tourists alike to do. And there's clearly a gap in the market here. There's nowhere down there to buy coffee from on the weekends. So if someone wants to put their hand up and sell some, we'll all be there buying it in droves.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? Anyone wishing to bring an amendment forward? If not, I'll put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's carried. 8 votes to 0. Call Councillor McMullen back, please. Councillor McMullen, they advise you that that motion has been carried in regards to the food ban. Councillors, we now move on to asset management area and item 12.2.1, and this item is on page 84 of your agenda and the recommendations on page 85. Are there any questions you might have on this to Mr. Walker? Yes.
Yeah, Mr. President, can I move that we treat item 12.2.1, 12.2.2, 12.2.3 en bloc, as they all relate to the same issue?
Seconded by Councillor O'Born. I don't think it takes debate. Just those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9 votes to 0. So, okay, we have 3 of them there, councillors, and the staff have provided us with information in regards to each one of those. Well, what I would say, are there any questions in regards to any of these three items to Mr Walker? Because first I only asked for comment on the first one. No questions? I could ask him what I asked him last Wednesday, but I won't. Okay. Councillors, then, would somebody please move that these three items be carried? Oh. Moved by Councillor. Councillor Chambers, second. Councillor Flanagan. Yep.
Still water got something.
Yeah, no, it must have something. Could you just pass me up some water? Please,
And he wants some more.
something special in it, isn't it? Councillors, it's been moved, seconded. Is there any debate needed? Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9-0. Sorry about that, my apologies. I don't know who I can blame for that one. So let's move on then to item 12.2.4, Kerwin Road trees. Items on page 96, recommendations on page 98. Are there any questions to Mr Burge or Mr Walker on this item? Yep, Councillor McMillan.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. The council requests the chief executive officer to issue a public tender for the disposal of blue gum trees on lot 12, Fairwell Road, Kirkcaldy.
Moved by Councillor McMullen. Is it seconded? Seconded by Councillor Chambers. Councillor McMullen, speak to the motion.
Microphone wasn't on. Obviously, this was brought to council last OCM. There is the issue with regards to insurance on the trees. As tabled in the report, we're unable to get these assets insured, so the only sensible option from here on in is to go out for tender so we can look to realise this asset and get this off our risk register. And I urge council to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor McMullen. Is there a speaker against the motion? No speaker against. Councillor Chambers, do you wish to speak as a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't think waiting any longer for these trees is going to make any difference to the value. I don't know that tree farming has ever been a hugely profitable business in Esperance, so I think the ability to get rid of the trees and then possibly start to realise some income through either tendering some of the land or getting access to the gravel will be of a benefit to the council.
Thank you. So is there a speaker against or an amendment? No speakers against, no amendment. I'll put the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that's carried 9 votes to 0. Thank you, Councillor. He's caught it now, so. Must be in the water. Councillor Graham has left the chamber because he has declared an interest in item 12.2.5, proposed land swap and road dedication on Telegraph Road. Is there any questions you might have to Mr Walker on this item? There's no questions. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Flanagan.
I move the the officer's recommendation. Mr. President, should I read that recommendation out in full?
Items 1 to 3.
Items 1 to 3, I move that those recommendations be done.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor McMullen. Councillor Flanagan, you can speak to your motion.
It's pretty straightforward. The land swap or proposed land swap addresses an anomaly in relation to the alignment of Telegraph Road, and it's pretty straightforward in relation to just resolving that issue.
Is there a speaker against the motion? Seconder, would Councillor McMullen, do you wish to speak in favour?
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there a speaker against or an amendment? Put it to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That's carried 8 votes to 0. call Councillor Graham back into the chamber, please. Councillor Graham, for your information, the motion was carried. Can we move on now, councillors, to item 12.3.1, which relates to the Esperance Golf Club lease renewal? And are there any questions here to Mrs. Baxter on this lease? No questions? Then, Councillor O'Donnell?
The unauthorised structures on site, what are they? Just for council's information.
Through your chair, and Matt, I might get you to back me up on this. I think it's the water tanks that are being, no? Do you know?
Not from understanding. I think it might have been the golf cart sheds or something like that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure though.
Is this essential to the debate?
No, I just would like councillors to be aware of what it was that are unauthorised.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Just the information.
Well, then that information can be provided.
I'll confirm that for you. I'll take that on notice.
If you're not happy to vote on it without knowing that information, councillors, we can transfer this and make a decision next month, but no one's seeking to do that.
It's no imperative.
Okay. All right, someone prepared to move the officer's recommendation in regards to this lease. Moved by Councillor McMullen.
Yep, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that council enters into a lease with the Esperance Golf Club for lots 527 and 529 Norseman Road, Reserve 38227, subject to Department of Land's approval. Term of the lease being 20 years, annual lease fee to be $110 including GST, lease preparation fee of $132 being payable, the club submitting a development application for unauthorised structures on site, and a request being lodged at Landgate to surrender the expiring lease with the club to be responsible for the lodgement costs.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McMullen. Is it seconded? Yes. Seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor McMullen, you wish to speak to it?
This is very straightforward lease renewal request done importantly in consultation with the Esperance Golf Club, and I urge council to support this motion.
Is there a speaker against? Seconder, would you wish to speak in favour?
No, I'd like to agree with Councillor McMullen. Thank you very much.
Is there a speaker against or an amendment? There's no speaker against and no amendment. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried 9-0. We go on to item 12.3.2, policy review of human resources. And there's a lot of information here. Do you want to ask questions on all of it, or you had enough answers on that last week? The item is on 107, recommendations on 108. Councillors, are there any questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter?
There was a minor amendment to
Yes.
HR 007. Sorry, HR 015. To include Local Government Act in the after clause 5C.
Thank you for advising us of that correction there, and I think
The
Dr.
update,
Newkirk-
I think the attachment has been updated and sent through. So that's, it's just to clarify that that had been done after
but
our
councillors in their agendas will not have that update. You need to understand that, councillors, but that one was, that question was asked by Dr. Newkirk last Thursday, and that, and we were advised on Friday, I believe, by email that it's corrected. Okay, all understand that? Mr Walker.
Through the chair, you just need to, if you want to accept that update, just modify the recommendation slightly, just to say as amended.
Yeah, I guess we have to put some words in there, don't we? The council adopt the human resources policies inclusive of amendments, inclusive of amendments, inclusion and deletions as reviewed. Okay, so we want to be specific about that change or not?
If you just added as amended to the...
As amended.
To the last part, it would, I guess, reflect that what went up in the agenda item has been changed.
Mr CEO, can you give us some advice here?
Yeah, and just to clarify, it was actually policy, HR 097. It's actually clause 3 to B.
Yep.
And it's just adding those words on. So, the resolution can just say, that's got it there, so that would be inclusive amendments, inclusions, and deletions as reviewed. So
That's
that would be covered.
Okay, all right, so that's there. Any other questions you might have, councillors? Then we have a recommended motion there for you. Do you wish to, somebody wish to move that one? Moved by Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor Graham, you speak to your motion.
Yeah, just move the officer's recommendation. The council adopt human resources policies inclusive of amendments, inclusions and deletions as reviewed. So that's the motion. Yep. And just yes,
Speak to it.
thank
if you wish.
thank the human resources officers for bringing this up to date to current situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against the motion? If is, then I'll give the seconder opportunity to speak in favour of the motion.
No, nothing to add to it.
Thank you. Speaker against or an amendment? No speaker against, no amendment. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. 9 votes to nil. Item 12.3.3 is a rate exemption application. Councillors, that item is on page 165 of your agenda and recommendations on page 167. Do you have any questions to Mrs Baxter in regards to this item?
Through you, Chair, again, there was a small amendment to the recommendation to refer to the to ENAC's name change to Mudja. The Mudja Aboriginal Corporation.
So, just hang on, we've got to get this right. So we're saying here the recommendations, Esperance Noongar Aboriginal Corporation.
The name has been changed.
Can we just clarify who the rate notice was in? The
Yeah.
name of the property, because that would be the important bit.
That's right.
So I can check.
Regardless of what their name is now, it's what's in our rates book. Councillor O'Born, you were indicating you wish to.
I was going to move an amended motion with the updated name, so the officer's recommendation, but just amend the corporation's name. I think staff are just looking up their certificate of incorporation. Yep, Mudja Aboriginal
That was
Corporation.
provided within the report, I think.
Yep, Mudja
Mudja.
Aboriginal Corporation.
So that they would have informed us of that, and so we should have our rates book updated anyway, shouldn't we? If we've had advice.
We should, but I'd have to take that on notice. I'd have to check that.
Oh,
The
well,
system still has it as Esperance Noongar Aboriginal Corporation.
Do you want us to
it
let
does.
that
And 4 Wood Street is the property? Yes, Graham? Yes, sure.
A question, did Mudja apply for a charitable
Purpose.
purposes?
Yes.
Because I know the other one did, but I just can't remember Mudja coming through, that's all.
Yes, they've had trouble getting their story together in the past, and they've been able to provide the evidence that they are a charitable organisation, that they're conducting activities to prosper the education and community connectedness of their their group.
So has that gone through
Yeah.
state? So, yeah, all right.
Okay, any more questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter? So we've got an agreement in place now that this is we're using the name Mudja Aboriginal Corporation and the property is 4 Wood Street, but there is some conflict with our rate records then. It hasn't been updated in our rate records. Is that what you've suggested, Mr. CEO?
Well, if the property is still in the name of Esperance Noongar Aboriginal Corporation, then we need to give an exemption to Esperance Noongar Aboriginal Corporation.
Perhaps we could use both titles in the recommendation,
Well, I would have thought that was
now
that-
known as
Yeah.
Mudja Aboriginal Corporation, and leave the ENAC,
Yeah.
the reference to ENAC in there.
Well, you have got the, you have the Wood Street property, so that locks in the area. And the name of Esperance Noongar Aboriginal Corporation, now known as Mudja Aboriginal
Yeah,
Corporation.
look, I think that would cover it.
Yep.
Councillors, are you happy that that would cover it? Well, then I'll take it from you, Councillor Oborne, if you wish to move that motion.
I would like to move the officer's recommendation that council grant a rate exemption under section 6.26 subsection 2G of the Local Government Act 1995 WA from the 1st of July 2021 for 4 Wood Street in the name of Esperance Noongar Aboriginal Corporation, ENAC, now known as Mudja Aboriginal Corporation.
Thank you, Councillor Oborne. Is there a seconder to it? Councillor De Haas. Councillor Oborne, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I think these guys have done a great job since losing their PVC status to remain financially viable and to assist Aboriginal people in the community, especially with regards to their at-risk youth initiatives. And they were recently successful in our community grants program with a successful application, and this is just another way that we can do something small to help them in their endeavours.
Thank you. A speaker against? Speaker in favour. Do you wish to speak in favour, Councillor De Haas?
Nothing more to add to what Councillor Oborne said. Well
Thank
said.
you. Is there a speaker against? If there's no speaker against, is there an amendment? No amendment. Those in favour, please show. Thank you. Carried 9 votes to 0. Thank you. We move on then to 12.3.4, self-supporting loan, Esperance Bay Yacht Club. The item's on page 199 and the recommendations on 201. Are there any questions you might have in regards to this item that we can ask to Mrs. Baxter or CEO?
Nothing
Yeah.
to add.
Go on,
Sorry.
Yep.
Client?
Yes, I believe so.
They would certainly have to be on the documentation before it's
Yeah.
signed out. Any other questions you might have for Mrs. Baxter? No more questions then? Is somebody prepared to move the recommendation, page 201? Councillor Flanagan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the officer's recommendation that council provide a self-supporting loan of $750,000 to Esperance Bay Yacht Club for a term of 15 years for the purpose of their marina upgrade, and to secure personal guarantors for the loan from Esperance Bay Yacht Club.
It's moved by councillor Flanagan, seconded. Councillor Oborne, councillor Flanagan, you wish to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a well overdue and wonderful facility, and the Esperance Bay Yacht Club should be congratulated in relation to the proposal, how they've gone about it, securing Building Better Regions funding for this, as well as providing community benefit. So they've actually provided for the emergency services and also the tender to utilise that facility as well for tourism. So yes, I think this has a wonderful merit, and I implore other councillors to vote.
Councillor,
May I,
on.
it might require one very, very small amendment. I've just noted point 2 says secure personal guarantors for the loan from Esperance Bay Yacht Club.
Yeah,
We're not
that's
getting
right.
a loan from them. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well spotted.
no, it depends how you look at it, isn't it? You can read it the other way too. We've got it, we're saying we secure personal guarantors for the loan
So that's
from Esperance Bay Yacht Club. That's right, that's and it-
Just clarify, from Esperance Bay Yacht Club members or?
for the loan from Esperance Bay Yacht Club members. But I think, it doesn't,
The amendment captures it. So that's securing the loan for the Esperance Bay.
Yeah, I just, when I read it a couple of times in my head, it just sounds like the loan from, as in we're getting a loan from the Esperance Bay Yacht Club. But
okay, well, a motion, councillors, is a letter to a lawyer at a later date. So let's get it right. So give us in the best English you can get to identify that.
Secure personal guarantors from the Esperance Bay Yacht Club for the loan.
Yep.
Okay, so let's try that.
For loan security or
for self-supporting loan, full stop.
Guarantors from the Esperance Bay Yacht Club for the self-supporting loan. Okay, now, the mover, did I have a mover or didn't I? Yes, I did, didn't I? Councillor Flanagan's already spoken to it. So are we, Councillor Flanagan as a mover, are you happy with that wording now?
yes, Mr. President, more than happy.
Okay. And the seconder was Councillor Oborne. Are you happy with it?
Yes.
Right. Now, Councillor Flanagan's spoken to it. Is there a speaker against it? Is the seconder wishing to speak in the debate?
Yes. I would like to congratulate the Esperance Bay Yacht Club on a hard-fought grant win on their behalf. They've worked really hard, put up quality applications, and it would be a shame if we didn't be the final cog in this wheel for them, and they lose their BBRF funding. They've had 2 loans with us previously with good conduct. They have proven capacity to service the debt, and this will generate economic benefit for the town. And I think if we're a coastal community, to have a really A-grade marina just seems like common sense to me. Yeah, and I encourage you to support this.
Is there a speaker against or an amendment? Put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried 9 votes to nil. So we go on then to a waive rates, 12.3.5, waive rates on common property, and that's on that item's on page 202, recommendations on 204. Councillors, any questions you might have to staff on this one to Mrs. Baxter? If not, somebody prepared to move the motion, recommendation? As I pointed out at the last week at the agenda briefing, this has been around for 20 years in my mind or longer. Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, I'd like to move
the officer's recommendation that, I don't know whether it actually needs some changes to the wording, but it says deem rates for lot 16 on plan 17291 as non-rateable in accordance to section 6.47 of the Local Government Act 1995 WA, as the land should be common land and therefore non-rateable. Reversal levies raised since May 2016. I think it should just deem lot 16 as non-rateable.
Yep, I
Does
think,
that read right to you?
I think that's, you've got a key point there, I think.
If you just, yeah, so it just says deem rates, yeah.
Yeah. Take out the word
Yeah,
Rates for.
yeah, take that out as well.
rates for deem lot 16 on that plan as non-rateable. That's what we're deeming.
In accordance with.
In accordance with instead of 2 in that top line as well, please, Emily. Yep, that's good. Is there any, are we happy with the wording of that? Councillor Chambers?
Yes, I'm happy with that, yep.
Are you happy to move it?
I'm happy to move that motion.
Moved by Councillor Chambers, is seconded. Councillor Flanagan seconds it. Councillor Chambers, speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, from the briefing that we had last week, this has been an ongoing struggle to try and get the pieces to fall into place to make this happen. So I think this is a logical answer and a step forward.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? If the seconder would like to speak to the motion?
I have nothing further to add, Mr President.
Is there a speaker against? Or an amendment? I put to the vote those in favour. Against, that's carried 9-0. So then we move on to item 12.3.6, application for short-term adjustment to rental trading hours, and we had some declarations on these. Councillor, oh, they're all leaving me. Have I got a quorum? So I've got a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got a quorum. Okay. Councillors, this item is on page, I did call it before, 205. Yep, page 205. Are there any questions you might have to Mrs. Baxter on this item? No questions? Somebody prepared to move the officer's recommendation? Moved by Councillor Oborne. Seconded. Seconded by Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Oborne, you wish to speak for it?
Yes, to the remaining colleagues in the room. I've said it twice, I'm going to say it a third time. We need to be open this summer. There is going to be a high number of tourists in town, and there's a lot of public holidays, which is great if you're a salaried employee, but if you're a tourist or a local on holidays, it means that there's going to be nothing open if we don't approve this. So I strongly encourage you to approve this.
Thank you. Speaker against? Speaker in favour. The seconder was Councillor O'Donnell.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Councillor Bourne has said, we need to offer services to our tourists, and it's going to be a busy season, so this is just one way to do it. Thank you.
Okay, so is there a speaker against or an amendment? I'll put to the vote those in favour, please show. We've got 6-0. Call the other councillors back into the chamber, please. Councillor, the motion concerning the trading hours over the Christmas holiday period was carried. We move on then to James Street Cultural Precinct 12.3.7. The item is on page 210, recommendations on 213. Are there any questions you might have on this item? Any questions? Then, councillors, is someone prepared to move a motion? No? Start, mate. We've lost their voice. Councillor Chambers.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation to receive the James Street Cultural Precinct Development Plan, October 2021, and request the Executive Officer to advertise the James Street Cultural Development Precinct Development Plan for public submission for a period of 6 weeks, as opposed to 3 weeks.
Okay, councillor, there's the recommendation, that's the motion. We'll get the words correct up on that one. We just change that little number 3 to a 6 in this motion. Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to check through that.
We're working on that one.
Change that to 6.
Is that one there? That's it? Okay, now is there a second to that motion? Councillor De Haas. Right, Councillor Chambers, you can speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been a long, ongoing discussion and consultation period, and I thank the staff very much for all the work that they've done, and I thank all those people, and in particular to the community that has had input into this. Hopefully we can get this through and find some funding to get it going, because I think it's the next major project for Esperance, and I think the outcome of this will be really significant for the town. It has the potential to be an absolute beautiful community hub, and I certainly look forward to any other feedback and moving this project forward.
So that's a speaker in favour, is a speaker against? The seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I have watched this evolve over the last few years. I have attended all of the briefings on it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this get off the ground, particularly after visiting the Belmont precinct when Councillor O'Donnell and I were in Perth. Really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against? Councillors, I'll just speak in favour of it. Because I don't think the two speakers have addressed the key point in this. We've extended the time from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, and I think that, to me, that is an important point. Because I just think we've gone so far and we've done lots of consultation. There's no need to rush it right at the end. We've had staff indicate to us why they thought 3 weeks was enough. I think there's more time out there in the community, more opportunities to address some of those things. There's value. So I've spoken in favour of, just on that point that I considered wasn't highlighted in the debate. And so is there a speaker against the motion or an amendment? Put to the vote those in favour. Against, that's carried 9-0. We go then to item 12.8, point 12.3.8, potential tourism workers accommodation study, and that item is on page 214 and 216. So, any questions you might have here to Mrs. Baxter or the CEO? No questions? Someone prepared to move the motion? Councillor Chambers.
I move the officer's recommendation that council endorse the application to the Goldfields Esperance Development Commission to collaborative fund a study on affordable worker and tourism accommodation in Esperance, focusing on the gaps and the feasibility analysis, and to amend the municipal budget as per the table below.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Chambers. Is it seconded? Seconded Councillor Flanagan. Councillor Chambers, speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been highlighted in nearly every conversation we've had recently in regards to accommodation, both for workers and for tourists, from home care, aged care, to hospital, to retail staff, to nearly everything that we look at. There is a massive problem in and around accommodation, and I think this study will be a step in the right direction to identifying where the gaps are and hopefully trying to find some of the solutions.
Thank you. Is the speaker against the motion? Does the seconder wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I agree and fully support the comments made by my fellow councillor, and support the motion from the point of view that without any sort of a detailed research or knowledge, we can't put together a strategy to actually come to a solution. So, yeah, fully endorse the recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, against the motion or an amendment? Put to the vote. Those in favour, please show. That is carried. 9 votes to nil. We go then to 12.3.9, the Financial Services Report for October 2021. Items on page 17, 217. Is there any questions? I think you've had chances to ask those questions from last week and since then, if there are any questions. But I'll give you a last chance to ask questions. Someone then please move the officer's recommendation for the monthly financial management report. Somebody move? Moved by Councillor O'Gorn, seconded. Councillor O'Donnell, do you wish to speak to it?
Only to say that, as usual, it's very comprehensive, and to thank the staff for all the work in giving us all those documents to help us do our jobs.
Seconder, sorry, is there a speaker against it? Seconder, you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
I take it you're ready to vote then, Councillor. Those in favour, please show. Against, that is carried. So then we move on to executive services, and that's 12.4.1, waiving of planning and building fees for the Ports Football Club, and that item is on 265 of our agenda. Are there any questions you might have to Mr. Birds, the CEO? No questions? Somebody prepared to move the officer's recommendation? Moved by Councillor McMullen.
Yep. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation that council waive all development fees and building shy fees, excluding BCITF and building services levy, applicable with Ports Football Club's development application for the upgrade of their playing oval lighting.
Moved by Councillor McMullen. Somebody second? Second and vote. Councillor Graham then. Oh, my hand's going always, but so I've got a mover and a seconder. The CEO.
Can I just add something that
please.
could we look to change it to council refund all development fees and waive building shy fees, because they've actually paid the development application fee, so we need to refund that section.
Okay.
So if the mover and seconder are comfortable.
Yep.
Okay. Mover.
So does it need the word waive and refund, or
Oh, we could do waive and refund if you wanted to do it like that, all development fees and building shy fees.
Let's get the wording right. Waive and refund.
Because they haven't paid the building fees, they've paid the development fees.
I think we could leave it like that.
We leave it like,
Waive the building.
Yep. If that covers it, Mr. CEO.
Building shy fees.
yeah, look, I think that bottom one covers it. Yep. The alternative would just be put, refund and waive all development fees and building shy fees. If you want to do it like that as well, that would cover it as well.
Yeah. Refund and waive. How are we going with the words? Who was the mover? Councillor McMullen, are you happy that the words are getting close to what's needed? CEO, you were the ones that
Yep.
advised us.
That's fine as well.
Okay,
Cover it.
makes sense. You happy with it?
I'm happy with that.
Yep. Councillor Dahas, you got some advice?
Except for part of the fees which can't be.
So it might be clearer to just say that council refund all development fees and waive building shy fees, like we had it originally.
Thank you.
How are we going now for all of our wordsmiths? Councillor Graham, you've got an answer?
I failed English. So 49%, close.
No, well, let's get it right. Come on, that's.
Yep, so that's what it is. So that council refund all development fees and waive all building shire fees, excluding BCITF and building services levy.
Yep.
Yep, yeah, the rest of that's unchanged.
Okay, so now the original mover was Councillor McMullen, and you're happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
The seconder was Councillor Graham. Are you happy with that, Councillor Graham?
I'll go with that.
Okay, all right, Councillor McMullen.
Yeah, very happy to support the waiver and refund of these fees. The Ports Footy Club, obviously a great local footy club, but I think it's just really important to note that their oval and club is part of our greater sports ground, which is our premier sports ground, and so we do need to take some responsibility, and I think waiving and refunding the applicable fees here is a very, very nice token gesture, and I can't wait to see this project come to fruition, because having seen many training exercises there in the evening, the current lights aren't that flash, and the new lighting towers will be a much improvement on the existing ones.
Thank you. The speaker against. Second, I wish to speak to it, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, I had a lot to say too, but it all sounded the same, so I'll
Okay.
Councillor on that.
So, is there a speaker against or an amendment? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against, that is carried. Then we go to item 12.4.2, the information bulletin for October. Significant information within that. The recommendation comes on page 168. No questions needed. You happy with that document, Councillor?
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Council accepts the information bulletin October 2021. Council number 2, council priority summary October 2021. Number 3, delegations discharge, corporate resources. Number 4, letter, prevent heal support campaign. Number 5, community engagement, marine park planning process.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Chambers, is seconded. Seconded by Councillor De Haas. Councillor Chambers, you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, this is actually one of the parts of the agenda I do really enjoy reading month on month. The information that's in this is certainly something that I think should be highlighted to the community to have a look through, because it gives you a very, very detailed report on where the Shire and staff are at in regards to the outcomes from basically that stem from the community strategic report, because all the reporting and all the work, well, a lot of the workload falls from that report. So it is a really great piece of information, and I thank the staff very much for making sure that it's up to date and accurate each month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Is there a speaker against the motion? Is there any other speakers? Is there an amendment? I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against, that is carried. 8 votes, 9 votes to nil. Get it right here. So we move then on item 13, motions in which notice has been given. Any motions that you've received, Mr. CEO? No. Members' questions with or without notice. Is there any questions from members? No. Urgent business approved by decision. We don't have any urgent business.
Yes, there we do. There is a supplementary agenda item. Council are happy to accept that one, which is in relation to themes.
Oh, yes, that's right. We did. Yep. Okay. So, make sure. Okay. So, this item relates to beam scooters, and we've had information from... Oh, we have to, that's right, we have to. So you'll move that we accept the late item for this discussion. It's moved by Councillor Chambers, seconded Councillor O'Donnell, and so it's an action motion. Councillors, I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Against? That is carried. 9 votes to nil to action it. So we move on, councillors, and do we have any questions here to our staff on this item before we consider a decision on it? Any questions? There's no questions. Is someone prepared to move the motion concerning it? He actually beat you. You're a bit slow.
I wasn't even trying.
Councillor McMullen has moved. Would you like to read the motion, Councillor McMullen?
I will. I would like to move the officer's recommendation that council, 1, approve the street traders permit application from Beam Mobility for the hire of electric scooters subject to the following conditions. A through to M, and 2, delegate authority to the CEO to negotiate the exact land areas with Beam Mobility and make any minor amendments to the conditions required to finalise the traders permit, and 3, delegate authority to the CEO to amend trading locations at any time throughout the duration of the traders permit.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor McMullen, seconded by Councillor O'Born. Councillor McMullen, you can speak to your motion. Now set the time clock, please.
No, I'll be very quick on this one. I think we've had in-depth discussions on this, and we've obviously had the Zoom meeting with the management team for Beam Mobility as well. I think there's a fantastic benefit to the community as a whole, allowing a company like Beam to operate in a town like Esperance, particularly a town that lacks in public transport, that is bursting at the seams with tourists, particularly this time of year. So it's going to be fantastic to see these guys up and running, hopefully soon, which will give our lovely tourists that come to visit us, I guess, an easier mode to get around and hopefully spend more money in this town, which is what a lot of people want. In fact, when I was speaking with one of the representatives from Beam Scooters, they said that they've done some studies and they reckon that having Beam operational in tourist areas can increase your tourist spend by upwards of 30%, because it's easier for tourists to get from A to B in popular hotspots like this. I don't see too many negatives with allowing these guys to operate. I think it would be fantastic to connect people, tourists from, say, our caravan parks in Castletown, etc. Easy access to ride into town, etc. to spend some money in some of our lovely local shops and cafes, etc. I urge council to support this motion.
Is there a speaker against the motion? No. So, is there the seconder was Councillor O'Brien? You wish to speak in favour of the motion?
Yes,
Councillor?
this is an exciting tourism offering, Mr. President, in time for Christmas, and it's going to be great to support a new idea at no cost to the ratepayers, and the key word here is trial. If it's not successful, it won't continue, but it could be super fun, it could be super successful, helpful to tourists with their transport, as Councillor McMullen's already said, and locals alike, and it aligns with our commitment to support businesses, and I encourage you to support this trial.
Is there a speaker against? No speakers against. No amendment. I'll put the vote. Those in favour? Against? That is carried 9 votes to nil. So that's good. Matters behind closed doors? Nil? Okay, that's good. Public question time. We're still here, Dr. Newkirk. Did you have any questions? No questions from the public. Councillors, very interesting agenda. Excellent commitment to your decision making. As I said earlier on, probably the best debate over an issue that I've heard, as we talked about the issue with the, I guess the food van at West Beach. So compliment you on that, and I have nothing else to say. Then I'll declare the meeting closed.